How? Let me do now something for which I really hate myself, but it's necessary here. Let me repeat an old joke which I used, I would say at least a conservative estimate, some 15 to 20 times in my work. So, it's an old joke, you are not obliged to laugh, but its structure is wonderful. You know, that classical joke about an idiot who believes he is a grain of seed and it's finally cured in the lunatic asylum, is left out and comes running back, and his psychiatrist asks him, but why are you so frightened? Why do you come back? The guy says, well, I met a chicken and I was afraid the chicken will eat me, no? And the psychiatrist says, but wait a minute, we cured you. You know that you are not a grain of corn or whatever. And he says, yes, I know it now, but does the chicken know it also? This is how we believe today. Another story which I used only 5 times in my book, so I can tell it to you. The one you mentioned, quantum physics. We all admire. He was a true genius, much more than Heisenberg, who got it wrong with that uncertainty principle, Niels Bohr. You know, there is a wonderful anecdote about him. He had a small wooden house somewhere in suburbs around Copenhagen, and at the entrance of that house there was a horseshoe. In Europe, this is a superstitious item, allegedly preventing evil spirits to enter the house. And a scientist friend visiting him told me, wait a minute, you are a scientist, you shouldn't be superstitious. Why do you have that horseshoe there? You cannot beat Niels Bohr. You know what was his answer? I know I don't believe in it, I'm a scientist, but I have it there because I was told that it works even if you don't believe in it. That's how this is ideology today. In what sense? Now you will say, I'm telling you a joke. Oh, let's go further. First, I'm saying this is what Jacques Lacan means by the idea. In late Lacan, he liked to repeat that the formula of true atheism is not God is dead, but God is unconscious. It means precisely that. For example, in psychoanalysis, today patients are cynical. You know that Freudian standard joke, this is not my mother. When you ask a patient, who is that woman in your dream, and he answers, I don't know who that woman is, I'm just sure that it's not my mother. Well, today we don't have patients like that. A patient today would probably immediately told you almost the opposite, like, I don't know who that woman is in my dream, but I trust you. Probably it has something to do with my mother or whatever. So the point is not to put it in this metaphoric terms, the true task of psychoanalysis is not to convince you about your unconscious desires, whatever, but to convince the chicken, which is your unconscious. It's much more difficult. You know who knew this? Although I'm very critical towards a lot of his work, Marx. What Marx meant by commodity fetishism is something much more mysterious than it may appear. Look how Marx begins his famous subchapter to the supplement, subdivision 4 of the chapter 1 of Capital on commodity fetishism. I quote Marx. A commodity appears at first sight an extremely obvious, trivial thing, but its analysis brings out that it is a very strange thing, abounding in metaphysical subtleties and theological niceties. End of quote. Are we aware what a strange thing Marx is saying here? It's the exact opposite of the naive, materialist, enlightened critique of religion, which says, oh, you, I'm simplifying it, you idiot, you live in your obscure religious fantasies. No, but in reality, no, Marx is saying the opposite. You think a commodity is just an ordinary object there. You think money is just an instrument for us exchanging commodities. But what has to be brought out is precisely the implicit metaphysical topics that you practice even if you do not believe in it. In other words, even if you are an atheist, your unconscious remains divine. Which is why when Marx provides his definition of ideology. Sie wissen das nicht, aber sie tun es. They don't know it, but they are doing it. It doesn't mean the vulgarity. Oh, you think one thing, but you are doing another thing. It means you do not know the illusions that you follow, but you are doing them. Like, to put it in simple terms, in your self-consciousness, you are a vulgar materialist, like utilitarian. You think money is just an object, blah, blah, blah. But what you are not aware is that in your social practice, you act as if you believe in magical properties in money. And commodities are here chicken. Marx evokes this idea when he says, if commodities could speak, they would say this and so on and so on. It's this weird fiction of commodities speaking to another. Now, so again, the point is of fetishism, Marx, is not that we live in some superstitions and some naive, enlightened procedure should enable us to get rid of it. No, Marx's point is precisely that, especially in modern era, where we appear to be enlightened utilitarians, we are not aware of the theological niceties, etc., which continue to structure our life. And my friend Alenka Supancic, one of the members of my Slovene Lacanian gang, applied also this chicken joke, or Marxist joke on commodities, to God. He said, instead of lunatic asylum, imagine a revolutionary materialist society where those who still believe in God are treated like madmen and they're ideologically brainwashed. So imagine one of them being finally cured, now you know there is no God and so on, and he is released, but he comes running back and says he is scared of being punished by God. Now the teacher there tells him, teacher of materialism, but you know now that God doesn't exist. He said, I know that God is dead, but does God know it? I'm afraid that God didn't learn this news, and so on.